Fishing with Hogun and Aunt Polly. Summer 1988, I was staying down at a rental at Dekle Beach with my mother and 7-year-old nephew Hogun. Mama was taking a nap one afternoon when Hogun came banging in the screen door with a pitiful look on his face and said, "All my friends are gone and I'm out of quarters." It was a plea for companionship or money for pinball. He was giving me a choice. I was happy right where I was, reading in the shade. It was hot outside, and I sure wasn't going to let go of any of my money. He knew better than that. 4 quarters could buy a gallon of gas back then. I told him, go take the boat for a spin in the canal. We brought the Tapetanic with us, Mama's old 12-foot fiberglass boat with a little motor. He was sullen and said, "If I can't take it past the store, what's the point?" I had to agree with him. The lure of the Gulf was strong, and being confined to that little piece of canal was not fair. So I put down my book, and we got 2 Zebco 33s out of the trunk of my car, a tackle box, and rounded up some shrimp for bait, loaded up the boat, and headed out to sea. Actually, we only went a couple 100 yards off into the dock because you never knew when the duct tape holding the Tapetanic together was going to start to come loose. But it was plenty deep enough to fish, and most importantly, we were out of the canal. We baited our hooks, cast, and began to drift. The 2 of us had fished together on many occasions, and these adventures became the topic of conversation. He said, "Aunt Polly, remember the snakes trying to steal our strings of fish?" "Yep." This happened multiple times at one of our favorite spots, at a culvert off Kelly Grade, where you were guaranteed to catch a mess of little red bellies as long as you were willing to beat back the water moccasins and banded water snakes with your cane pole. It was like a nursery or a nest of snakes. While we kept going back to this spot, I continued to wonder. He continued, "Aunt Polly, remember the day you busted up the boat on the rocks in the Osceola?" "Uh-huh." It was why the boat was now held together with duct tape. No one told me the tide went out on the Osceola River. I didn't know what the heck I was doing when I put that boat in the water. I was just taking a boy fishing. The water was deep and placid when we left the boat round there down the road from JR's. Returning a few hours later, it was fast and rocky. We sheared a pin. Then the current took us on a wild ride, bamming and framming the boat against the rocks. 6-year-old Hogan had hooted with joy while I hung on for dear life. I had to lodge that boat up in some rocks, then get out and squat on a rock in the middle of the river and change that pin. "We should do that again," he suggested. I gave him the stink eye and was just about to remind him about the time he reeled in someone's lost boot when his rod bent and the line whirled. He stood up, leaned back, and began to reel as fast as he could. The Tapetanic rocked violently. "Sit down," I yelled. "Whoa, it's a big one." He didn't sit down. I lowered my center of gravity to steady us and grabbed the net, hoping that the little freshwater Zebco would hold up to whatever was on the hook. Suddenly, something big as our boat broke the surface right where the fishing line disappeared into the water. It rolled and splashed, and then was gone as suddenly as it appeared. We both looked at the fishing line. It was still taut in the water. "What was that?" he asked softly. "I don't know," I whispered. "Cut the line," Hogan said loudly. "No way. Reel it in, you big chicken," I told him. He handed the Zebco to me. "You reel it in, bigger chicken." "I think so." I reached out and felt the fishing line. There was clearly something still on it, but it seemed like dead weight. Then he said, "Aunt Polly, you should reel it in. You're the grown-up." That was a dubious claim, and he knew it. But instead of arguing, I played a different chord. "Yeah, but you're the man." I smiled and triumphed. He cut his eyes at me and began to slowly reel. The only sound in the air was the tick, tick, tick of the Zebco. Dearie, I leaned over and peered down into the muddy water. Why is the Dekle Beach water always so muddy? Peered down into the muddy water, expecting jaws to explode at any moment. At first, I didn't see anything. Then a big catfish head came looming into view. And I furrowed my brows, thinking this could not be the Leviathan we saw roll on top of the water. When he pulled the fish head into the boat, we realized what had happened. The Leviathan, or whatever it was, had been in pursuit of the catfish, as Hogan was reeling him in and bit off the head and bit off the body, leaving us only with the head. It was cleanly severed, and the whiskers were still twitching. Hogan looked up at me, crestfallen, and spoke in his small 7-year-old voice. "He got the best part." It was so sad. Fishing with Hogan and Aunt Polly.